Chainsaw Man's power system isn't original, like, at all. I mean, the idea of making a deal with demons is literally ancient. Contract systems in general are prevalent in anime as subsets of other, bigger power systems, so what makes Chainsaw Man special in this regard? It's because it takes this simple, ancient idea and refines it into perfection. And that's because of the type of power system that it is. The way I see it, you can divide power systems into one of two camps. You have your classic RPG style skill tree power systems and the simpler but equally effective linear power systems. Most of the really well received power systems in anime fall into the former camp. Think of Nen for example. A character starts with their aura, then they branch out into basic skills of controlling aura flow, which further branches out into advanced techniques, from concealing aura constructs to giving that aura to objects. And then we have the actual Nen abilities defined by soft categorizations with lots and lots of rules to them. There's an inherent intrigue to this kind of power system. As you see characters develop their abilities, you see what they're good at and what they choose to improve, giving multiple avenues for strength in that world. It's a lot like putting points into a skill tree in a video game. The more modern example of this kind of power system would be Jujutsu Kaisen's Curse Energy. In fact, I think it's a very interesting comparison with Chainsaw Man's Devil contracts because the design philosophies behind them are just directly opposed. With Curse Energy, a character has their curse technique, but they can also use curse tools, or they can be good at reverse curse technique, or they can be good at barrier techniques, or have a maximum technique. The design philosophy here is that Curse Energy can do so much that the author is forced to categorize these things so that there's a sense of order to it. Like I said, this kind of thing is common in anime. Even all of the big three use this idea to some degree, from chakra to haki to reiatsu. Now, Chainsaw Man doesn't really do any of that. Let me put it this way. In Jujutsu Kaisen, very early on, there's a scene where the protagonist Yuji makes a deal with the curse inside him, Sukuna. This is called a binding vow, and in terms of binding vows between people and curses, Akutami doesn't really get a lot of mileage out of this concept. Yuji's vow with Sukuna does have its very plot-relevant moments, but that's mostly it. And that's because Curse Energy just has so much else going on, it can't cover everything in depth or make full use of every aspect of it. Chainsaw Man, however, just has this concept. The only way for a human being to get stronger in this series is to make contracts with devils. And because of that, it's not only incredibly well explored, but also really refined in its design. You see, a power system has to answer two questions. What kinds of powers can a character use, and how strong is that power? Generally speaking, strength is a matter of the individual in most series, but the actual abilities used are determined by the complex categorizations of these systems. And I do want to make clear there's nothing wrong with that. These two kinds of systems have their own pros and cons. It's just that one of the pros of the linear power system is that it's a lot more streamlined. How does a character get stronger in Jujutsu Kaisen? Well, they can train their curse technique, they can get a curse tool, they can train other aspects of the power system. But how does a character acquire abilities in Chainsaw Man? Well, they get more contracts with other devils to stockpile abilities. It's much simpler and forgoes the need of some complicated explanation just to introduce a new kind of power. That being said, this brings up a strength of the skill tree power systems. Categorizations and branching ability types makes the introduction of new powers easier to accept. Like if you're watching Naruto and some character uses a lightning ability, that's not a weird thing to see because it's already established that it's a part of chakra as a power system. If some character uses a really overpowered ability, well, why not? They have a Sharingan. With a more linear power system, this kind of categorization doesn't really happen that much. For example, quirks in My Hero Academia have some categorization, but they're vague and broad, making it so most of the powers in this series have to be a bit more grounded, with some exceptions. Chainsaw Man is able to get around this by tying every possible concept in existence to a being that can be contracted. This makes it so literally any ability can exist within this this narrow system, and because those concepts are tied to fear, those concepts don't necessarily have to be real, just feared. That's why you can range from a tomato devil to a ghost devil. I mean, someone out there has to be scared of a tomato. There is quite literally no limit despite the limited nature of the power system, and because of that, the exact dimensions of the power system are allowed to be complex, with the system itself being incredibly simple. Like I said, how does a character gain abilities? Well, they get a contract with another devil, which already opens up the writing options to literally anything. Well, how strong is that ability? That depends on both how strong the devil is and how much the character is willing to sacrifice. Himeno's Ghost Devil is pretty strong, but she generally settled for a fraction of its strength by just trading out an eye. But what makes the Devil Contract system particularly brilliant is how it implements the contracts at all. Because the contracts themselves aren't so rigid, it doesn't operate on equivalent exchange like Fullmetal Alchemist or anything. Sure, the standard usage is giving up a body part for the usage of that devil's power, like giving up a fingernail to briefly summon a giant snake demon. But ultimately, these are deals being made with sentient creatures, and because of that, you can do a lot of interesting stuff with that. My favorite example of this, and honestly the scene that inspired this video, is in a recent episode when Aki makes his contract with the Future Devil. This exchange is built up with the background info on the contracts it has made in the past, such as taking half a person's lifespan. And what does it want from Aki? It just wants to be there to see his death because it's just that bad. That's the sort of thing that you just don't see in most power systems because the Devil Contract system is flexible to reflect character without being contrived. The powers these people use are living things that can make choices depending on their personality. We see the same thing with the Fox Devil. It only allows the use of its head in battle by people who it thinks are attractive, and it can just as easily leave that person entirely if it feels like it was misused. That's overall what makes this power system so brilliant. It takes an incredibly simple concept and makes it interesting. It's really multifaceted, with the power of a person determined by not only what being they're contracted with, but also the exact terms of the contract, which can further be impacted by the personal dynamic of the contractees. You just don't see that level of careful crafting dedicated to it when it's only a facet of a larger power system because there's just so much else going on. The simpler style of Chainsaw Man allows the series to take a much more focused approach to see how far it can take its core concept. The addition of fiends and hybrids are just a bit of icing on the cake that allows the series to have characters that can survive really brutal injuries without actually changing much about the power system. It doesn't take away from the focused nature of it at all. At the end of the day, it's a system that gets the absolute most out of its concept with a very refined design, geared towards being flexible to the needs of the story so that Fujimoto can generate whatever interesting situation he wants to. And yeah, that's why Chainsaw Man's power system is actually pretty great. I don't know, I just never really see anyone talk about it in depth, so I figured that should change. And if you liked the video, do be sure to like and subscribe for more like it. I really like Chainsaw Man, so I promise I'm probably gonna get around to talking about it again. But for now, see you around and take care.